Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. We've got a delegate in the House. Chris Adams is here to talk to us about what happened in Annapolis in the 90 days he was there this winter. Welcome, Chris.
Greg, good to see you this morning. And, it's been 8 years. I was just talking earlier, Phil Tillman was doing PAC 14 when I started this. I would break a sweat on one of these first interviews 8 years ago, but time flies, and that 90-day session went fast as well. So looking forward to chatting about what interests you and
and now
people.
you're a pro. So
We'll call it a pro.
So the big thing that people in business have been talking to me about, I'm sure you're hearing about, and you played a role in, was this family leave time for people in small businesses who don't have maybe the rules that the larger businesses have. The General Assembly took some action on that, basically made it into like an unemployment type situation where people could get paid time off. So tell me about the paid time off bill and what will that do to our community?
So Greg, for my 8 years, I've been on Economic Matters Committee, and we've seen this bill in one way, shape, or form for the last 3 years, right? So this bill has been brought and it's failed. The things that have caused the bill passage in years past is the idea that we're trying to stand up an insurance program, a very large insurance program, and the question was always, how do you fund it? Like, how do you fund a federal or state mandated insurance program? You have to do an actuarial study. You have to make sure that you're drawing enough money in from the paychecks to pay for it. And then the question is, how much will it get used? And so insurance companies, private sector insurance companies, know how to do this. It's part of the world they live in. And if they need to adjust rates, they adjust rates. And so in years past, they've not figured that out. And I don't think they figured it out this year. I mean, we passed a bill during an election year that was a paid family medical leave, and it is a $1.6 billion payroll tax. I mean, that's the number, and I'm not even sure they know that that's the number. It's the best that I think Department of Legislative Services could come up as a good guess as to what this will cost. The legislature didn't pass a hard bill that puts it in place next year. There is a study, so we were able to win some moderation to the bill. And the question is going to be, is the government going to stand up a program almost the same size as unemployment insurance? This would be 400 employees. They would have to promulgate regulations, and with no guidance. There was no commission done. There was no study of really this bill. It passed, and it's almost like we're going to see what's in it after it passes. And that's, in my opinion, bad politics. But again, in our committee, we've heard it for a number of years, and just unsure what the next year or two. It's going to be left to a future legislature.
Right. So there will be a payroll deduction for that, and then employers will also have to pay a little bit.
Right. So it's a mandated cost. It'll come through as a payroll tax, and as with unemployment insurance, there's employer and employee contributions, and those contributions, frankly, have yet to be determined. In the Senate's bill, they were suggesting that 75% of the employee's contribution, so that leaves the employer with just 25%, and that's a lot. I mean, you started hearing some numbers about what would this look like for the average worker on a weekly basis coming out of their paycheck. My question was, do people even know that we're passing a bill like this?
Right.
Do they even know what's going on? And when it starts coming out, they're not going to actually be able to receive the benefit,
right?
Because they've got to build up the insurance fund,
right?
It's
Right. And in small businesses, we're certainly opposed to this, and people are sympathetic. They understand that you have a medical situation, a family situation. It's tough, but you still got to go to work for your income. So it's a really tight situation, and lawmakers have to weigh both sides, but you need to also protect the small business somehow.
Right. So the federal government does have unpaid family medical leave. This state bill sort of mimicked. It's not the same thing, but it's similar. So we've always had sort of the guarantee of if somebody needs to take leave for certain purposes, they can leave and have unpaid time away, and then when they're guaranteed a job to come back. That's part of the law that stands as we are here today. And the utilization then is only if somebody really needs it. And then a business in that setting, you would think if they can afford it, that they would try to help the employee through, maybe it's a pregnancy, maybe it's a severe family illness that they need to tend to a grandparent or what have you. And I can say as a business owner, your employees are your most important assets. And so you want to help people that really need it. My concern, the way the bill is drafted, is that it broadly expands what the federal definition of family medical leave is,
Right.
and creates almost an entitlement that people, once they start paying into it, they're going to want to get something out of it.
Right.
They're going to say, okay, I've been paying into this program
So I'm
for
going to take that time.
5 years. I'm going to figure out a way, and I
Yeah.
think the government has written this in such a way where they'll be able to take leave for up to, I think it's 24 weeks.
Right.
And I don't think it's workable. I think at the end of the day, we'll have this program. It probably will not look like what we passed last year. I think this was an election year gimmick, to be blunt, and it'll be left to a future governor and a future legislature is to actually draw the rules that are out there. Because I think once the citizens realize that we passed a payroll tax in the middle of historic inflation, I call it geopolitical war, but this is a major upset situation in Eastern Europe. It's just I think the timing was really bad
Yeah.
on something like this.
The other issue that got people excited was the climate change bill, and I'm not sure what version of it ended up passing. I need to, well, that's why you're here, to explain this stuff to me. But there was great angst about it at first. Maybe it wasn't so bad at the end. The thing I've always wondered is, can we do that much locally really to affect that? Because we've got great environmental laws. We're a leader among environmental regulation in terms of protecting our water resources, certainly. But what is this climate change bill? What is it? What's it going to do?
Right. So, the other thing is on Economic Matters Committee, we have jurisdiction on energy policies. So this was jointly assigned between the Environment and Transportation Committee. So this bill definitely had this environmental aspect to it. But there is the energy policy. Okay, what is this bill, should it pass? What's it going to cost the ratepayer and the taxpayer in the state of Maryland? And so we heard that part of the bill. And let me just say up front that the bill, as introduced, was a ban on natural gas. The federal and state government is moving toward, with current leadership, the electrification of the grid.
Right.
They have to do that because where they're headed in their mind is we want offshore wind and we want solar. We want renewable forms of energy at almost any expense. And so to do that, you have to wean the country and our state off of natural gas and fossil fuels. Now, I think it's a faulty premise because, first off, natural gas is clean. It is inexpensive. And think about this for a minute, Greg. Baltimore City, that's Baltimore Gas and Electric. How do they heat their homes in the winter?
Right.
It's with natural gas.
Right.
I just don't know. So the principle of the bill was flawed to begin with. I think there is this pie in the sky vision that we're going to have energy produced with, wind and the sun, and that I just, are we going to store it? Are we going to put battery technology in place? This might be 20, 30 years down the road. And so the bill did get amended. It had to do with energy requirements for buildings, and so banning the use of natural gas in buildings. So we actually got rid of that in our committee. It hits the House floor in some version of a study / ambition of over a certain period of time getting there, which is, we've seen a lot of these bills. We've always seen these bills that have the intention of doing something, but yet the timelines are too far out. And in 5 years, who knows what's going to happen. And Maryland is 12,000 plus or minus square miles. We're one state of 50 in the country, and we're one country out of hundreds in the world. And I have some severe concerns about us acting unilaterally as one state, thinking we're going to be able to solve all the world's ills in this case. We're still buying, solar panels from China. We're obviously offshore wind's on the way. Where are these being manufactured? And so, we're buying from the same countries that are some of the worst offenders for environmental activity. Let's just be honest about it.
Right.
So while it may look good in Maryland on a principled approach, not a policy approach, but you have to do this by connecting with countries that are just the exact opposite. We talked about this on the House floor, this virtuous sort of policy making that's going to cost ratepayers and taxpayers plenty. A lot of money. It's just...
Yeah, it's ambitious. It's the right thing to do, but we just have a natural gas line which has been extended to Somerset, which is crucial for economic development down there, for UMES, especially in the prison. Had problems forever where they needed natural gas. And how many farms are there in chicken houses that have the propane tank outside? yeah, maybe it needs to go away, but what's the solution going to be, and who's going to pay for it, and how long is it going to take?
Right. And this is the case that we made in Economic Matters Committee. You're making it, generically through the lens of.
And I don't want to make an anti-environmentalist case, but yeah.
Well, I don't think
Yeah.
you have to make it an anti-environmentalist case when you say that natural gas is clean, it's available, it's inexpensive, and if you want to live in a modern society that is counting on, that Chesapeake Utilities line that runs into Somerset County, that equals economic development. Not only did it connect ECI, but it also modernized UMES. I mean, they're still using oil to heat their buildings, and so that's going to connect there. Businesses in Somerset and Wacomico, right? I mean,
Right.
these
The
are
pipe is
they look
both.
for
Yeah.
sources of cheap energy. That's natural gas. We just did get that passed, right? I mean, that just happened last year, and you can see the line running, and here we are this year saying we're going to ban it. It's difficult. The hospital here, Tidal Health, there is a cogeneration facility there. It's how they operate. It's keeping costs down to the state. So there are any number of reasons. You mentioned poultry, keeping the poultry houses warm during the winter. Without inexpensive forms of energy to do such, they're just going to move to another state.
Right. There's that threat exists.
100%. But any environmental policy, when we have these, they weigh the benefits of the environment against do you want to live in a society that has jobs, economic development, a modern way of life that we in America, believe in. California has brownouts. The reason why is because they've not modernized their grid. They've counted too much on solar and wind at the expense of what happens when the wind's not blowing and when the sun's not shining and when there's growth and you've got to heat homes or air-conditioned homes and you turn lights on. I mean, rolling blackouts is not unheard of in California. I mean, is that what Maryland's future is? I mean, are policymakers moving bills like this and willing to accept the idea that if we move away from reliable baseload energy, that those are going to be acceptable to the average Maryland citizen? The answer has to be no, because other states connected to us are going the exact opposite direction. Take Pennsylvania, for example. I mean, that is a state remade on fracking.
Right.
Whether we like it or not.
Right.
Pittsburgh, and I've been to Pittsburgh, that was a industrial city that has been remade in no short part because of good policies that have sustained that part of our country through energy.
Right.
Energy policy. Clean natural gas energy policy. And here comes Maryland's bill that wants to get rid of it.
Right.
Anyway.
Salt Springs mayor had a little event this week where he touted the success of the General Assembly and diverting some money to Salisbury for some needed stuff.
Yeah.
Carl Anderson was there. He's head of the Wycomico County delegation.
Yes.
It sounded like he was very pleased with the amount of money that was able to come from Annapolis.
Well, I would say that anybody looking for money out of the capital budget, out of the the general budget, had to be pleased because the state had so much money this year. It was a $61 billion budget. I would say almost every priority got funded in one way or shape during session this year. The city of Salisbury has benefited by having a good vision and a good policy moving forward. It's not just good business sense that I'm seeing come out of Salisbury, but it's good investments that speak to long-term sustainable growth. So I'm happy to see that. The delegation has always been challenged, even predating. And when I say delegation, I'm talking about not just me, but our predecessors have always been challenged by when money comes through the budget, is it going to go to Montgomery, Prince George's, and Baltimore City, or are we going to get our fair share? That is a fight that has, over the years, been better in some cases, worse in others. When Norm Conway was the chair of appropriations,
It seemed a lot easier.
I was going to say we were probably, and so look, I think that the challenges are different and they're met differently. Senator Eckhart's on budget and tax, and so I know that she is capable of bringing money to the shore, knows how to do that. Carl is a great advocate for Wacomico County. He was a mayor, so he understands the need for funding and how to get it from the state. And Mayor Day, I think, has been a champion for the city of Salisbury. As a business owner in Salisbury, you can't help but like that kind of ambition and interest in our community. Let me just, now that I've said all this, a $61 billion budget is a lot of money, and it was a lot of money that came from the federal, government.
Sure.
And it's money that's not always going to be there. So I worry, and we're cautioning people in government, if you're going to use the money that is coming through the state, consider these one-time sources of funding. Don't stand up programs that require annual appropriations where you're coming back at later years and expecting the state to fund it, because it's just not going to be there. I was in Tampa at the NCSL conference, and every state has this real concern right now that the legislatures are passing budgets with all the federal money that's coming in from COVID and post-COVID response and recovery, and that be careful.
Yeah.
Don't get into a spot where you have to raise taxes considerably because you've stood up programs that require annual investments. So if the city of Salisbury is taking projects and priorities, and we're saying, okay, we're going to do this because it's important for long-term growth, and we're going to make these investments, those are great. If we're standing up programs that later are going to require major tax increases, both at a local level and perhaps at a state level, those are the ones that we have to be careful about. So my long story short answer in that is that it's very good for the state. It might be even good for the next couple years, but at some point, just as a Republican, as a conservative, as a guy that knows how easy it is to turn off the spigot of tax dollars when the economy gets into a recession, which I'm certain is coming at some point, government leaders need to be very cognizant of that for the benefit of the taxpayer.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, you represent District 37B, which is a really complicated district. It's western Wicomico.
Yes.
It's Dorchester County, large portion of Dorchester County. I guess maybe all of Talbot County?
Yes. Well, it's all of Talbot County, and I've run this will be my third election cycle, and from Wicomico it is particularly challenging because it is 4 counties, and the district line did change.
Oh, and also Caroline. I'm sorry, I left out Caroline.
Yeah, well, yeah. I have Federalsburg and Preston, and have created great roots in those 2 communities, but now we've gained the city of Denton, so the county seat in Caroline County is now in my district.
Wow.
And so our district got larger because the population on the Eastern Shore got smaller.
Yeah.
And so the lines
Not
changed.
in Wicomico, but in Dorchester, certainly.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Dorchester and Caroline. So, it's about an hour and a half from my door to the furthest point in my district. It's always been a big map, and I've always spent a lot of my money on gas going up and down the road. It's I love the job. As long as it never hurt the business, I was okay with, as a private business guy, going to Annapolis, advocating on issues that help the economic development for the area, job creators, and it's good work. The election cycle's coming right around the corner, and I'm excited to have my name put forward and asking voters to consider if they want experienced leadership. I've got now 8 years under my belt, and I'd say a good half of that was learning the job, working with Senator Eckhart and Delegate Moutz as a team to, sort out what it takes to run in a district like this, but also perform constituent service. And in Annapolis on Economic Matters Committee, I've created a niche of sorts. I'm one of maybe 5 pure business owners in Annapolis. It's a voice that needs to be heard. And I've always valued that voice because it can easily be lost up there with kind of like the pound the fist and yell. I'm a much different legislator in that regard. I speak and people listen to what I have to say. I keep it condensed, but I come from the heart, and I do get heard up there, and it's rewarding. When you're able to affect change, whether I can get a bill passed or a bill killed is not as nearly as important to me as that when we do have bills go through, I do have my thumbprint on a number of those bills. Making bad bills better is a big part of the job up there. It's not easy work, and it's hard sometimes to explain to people that are saying, Chris, what bills did you pass? Well, let's talk for the next hour or two about
You're
the
a Republican in an overwhelmingly Democratic chamber.
Yeah. And as a Republican, we have our certain place. We are the dialogue. I mean, we are the voice of the minority in our state, which still has a voice. And if it's done correctly and you do it in a way that is authentic, the Speaker of the House, who was Mike Bush, and now Adrian Jones, I mean, these are people that I think understand my part to play. And being on Economic Matters Committee is frankly the one committee where I could have made an impact the day one when I came in 2014, and I still have that same impact today.
Well, it's the diversity of our delegation, which is great because you're the small business guy, so you have all the anecdotal stuff to take to Annapolis to help business. And it's good for us in Salisbury because for so long we've in 37B or some variation of 37. That has usually been a delegate from Dorchester and Talbot or something like that. I don't remember us really having a Salisbury person representing 37B.
There's a practical challenge, and yes, thank you for that. We do have a diverse delegation that has different backgrounds, farming to
you get Charles Otto telling the
healthcare.
farmer stories, go ahead.
But from Wicomico County, the district is actually hard to win from where I live.
Right.
The work that it caused me to win in 2014, I spent a lot of time away from home, and most of the work that we do is not inherently in Wicomico County. It is in Dorchester and Talbot County. So those relationships are hard-earned. And from Wicomico, I'm proud to say that I've been able to win a race like this. I think it does speak to the effective nature of my advocacy on business issues, and also constituent service is so important. The average person who does call our office wants answers and resolutions, and after 8 years, I've developed a good reputation for that. So no longer does I think it matter that Chris Adams is from Wicomico County.
Right.
Chris Adams represents Midshore.
Right.
I'm a Midshore delegate, and with some change coming in our delegation, I stand as the lone experienced legislator, and it's part of the reason why I'm running again is because I'm going to be able to bridge some gaps over time with we're going to have a new delegate coming in with Johnny running in a different race. So.
Right, Johnny Mouse is running for state senate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is that we need some experience, and that was the main reason why I decided to file and run again, is to maintain some continuity and good conservative leadership in Annapolis. We're going to have some challenges over the next few years. I think our budget is going to be challenged. I think we are going to go into a recession, and we're going to have the small business voice up there to kind of like slow things down and modify bills as needed. That's actually very difficult work, and it's hard to do if you don't have the right attitude and mindset about the work and the service that is being given to the voters in 37B.
You did surprise me over the session. You got really excited about an issue that I didn't know that you cared that much about. The redrawing of the congressional district lines in District 1, Congressional District 1, which is a seat currently held by Andy Harris. You were very unhappy with the first plan that was put forth.
Right. Well, we saw that in December, so we passed both legislative and congressional districts. The congressional district, as a voter in the first congressional district, was egregious. They took, and I sat in the hearings and participated in the hearings, and they took asphalt and metal that crosses the Bay Bridge somewhere north of here, and were able to connect basically the city of Annapolis to communities like Hurlock, Ridgely, Trapp, Salisbury.
Now, I would argue that's not unprecedented by any means.
Well, but let me just say that the first congressional district is rural.
Yeah.
It is not Anne Arundel County, which is part of what that was going to be.
Right.
And there was an element of politics to that. They wanted to, in my estimation, remove a sitting Republican congressman, and they did it by connecting Annapolis City, which has no comparison. There's no relative comparison. So you want areas where there's free and fair elections for like-minded folks who run, for office in Washington. The map, the way that it was drawn, could have easily been an 8-0 Democrat advantage.
Right.
And that Maryland is just not 8-0. Larry Hogan, Republican, has won 2 terms, winning more than 50% of Maryland votes as a Republican. Bob Ehrlich did the same thing. So Maryland can and they do vote for Republicans. The question was, will those voters have their voice heard in Washington, D.C.? The map said no. So the judge, through a lawsuit that I was a plaintiff on, actually agreed The verbiage that was in that decision, they admonished the Democrat Party and the gerrymandering that happened there. And let me just say that the map was redrawn in a way that is far more representative of people.
It's much
on the
more
shore.
compact now. The different areas are very more compact.
It is,
Yeah.
and while the changes throughout the other areas in the state were not as dramatic as the one that we needed for the 1st congressional district,
Right.
it opened the door for more, and I'll just say, moderate Republicans who may consider, running for office. And this is an election cycle that you would think Republicans will do well in. So anyway, that experience was, of my 8 years, one of the most compelling, because actually filing a lawsuit and representing voters for the entire 1st congressional district. That was my mission, to make sure that we had our voice heard in Washington and have that validated through a victory in the courts, and then the legislature having to respond to that in a more productive way for map making will probably end up being one of my more compelling stories that I'll tell when when my grandkids are asking, what did Dad do when he was, Granddad did when he was here.
Well, being the cynical reporter guy, when I saw you were so excited about it, I said, okay, he wants to run for Congress, obviously. He's worried about how the district looks.
Yeah. I'm a private business owner first, and any job like that would require me to completely remove myself from private business. That's the nature of the job. So House of Delegates, this is a part-time legislature. It's 90 days. It is a full-time job during the interim, but it can be done at the same time you have business interest. Everybody else in the House of Delegates has other jobs. So that sort of leap, while I can see where you're coming from, and I think I've done a pretty good job over 8 years. I've developed a good voting record, and very conservative voting record, a good reputation. I would never, I'm going to say this to you now, I would never say never to a situation like that, but it was not the reason why I got involved. The reason why I got involved was I saw gerrymandering, firsthand, and I felt like it was time to, stand up and defend the Eastern Shore voter, and that's a good policy place to be. And what comes of that through the next election cycle is great. If at some point in the future Chris Adams continues to do politics, which is a, maybe.
Right.
We'll see.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to their delegate, Chris Adams?
Yeah, well, my email is christopher.adams@house.state.md, .us, and I guess you'll put that up on your screen somewhere.
Yeah.
We have an election cycle coming up. My cell phone's 443-359-0911, and I'm happy to give that out.
He's Chris Adams. Thank you, Chris, for having time to come in with us. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks for having me.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.